because I know you're going to be working with Bob Varsha and Jonathan Green out in Las Vegas. You looking forward to that?
Yeah, honestly, I'm much more comfortable going to work it than going for a first time like as a spectator, because at least we know where we're going and we know what we're doing. New races always they're always the first year very interesting. I think on the IndyCar side as well, if we have a new street race, right? Like we've done that a lot on the IndyCar side. And the first time, there's always some questions. Where do we go? What do we do? Who do we talk to about this? And there's always things that happen, always, no matter what, that haven't been thought about or like, oh wow, until we actually get there, we're not exactly sure what we need to do in this situation. Whereas, events the Long Beach street race, right? We've been going to that for 400 million years. So everyone knows where to go for that one, and we know where to go and what to do. So it'll be fun though. I'm excited to work with everyone. And honestly, it'll be just good to see all the Formula One folks. Normally, like I went to Austin last year, which was a lot of fun. Good to catch up with everyone, and just to see some of the drivers again. It's usually like our one time a year to hang out, so it'll be fun.
Well, you're going to be on the PA with Bob and Jonathan, and that's going to be a blast. Hey, Connor, we got a couple questions coming in off YouTube. Derek says, what was your best race in the days of F3 and F2, since you were mentioning some F3 over the break?
I mean, it had to have been Valencia in F3 2013, or oddly enough, my best race personally, I think, is when we got taken out the first race in Monza, penultimate round of the championship. We were fighting for the lead of the championship, and we got wrecked in day one. And that means day two, you have to start where you finish from day one. That's the reverse grid race. So I had to start 27th. And like I finished 8th and set fastest lap of the race, but that was only 2 points. So it sadly took us out of the but that I still think to this day was one of my best races in F3 or GP3 to that day. Because like I was so mad because we basically went from leading the championship in the middle of lap one, day one of that primary race, the first race, to then completely flipping life upside down. But it was still a lot of fun. I love racing at Monza. Monza was one of my favorite races in the GP3 F3 category. But it didn't have a lot of luck there. So, it is what it is.
Who took you out?
That day one, Monza, it was Dino Zamparelli. He forgot to brake at the first chicane, and he wiped out a bunch of us. Carlos Sainz got wiped out too. It was like me, Carlos Sainz, a bunch of other people. And it was a shame. Never forget it.
I seem to remember you coming tumbling into the picture out of the tunnel down to the chicane at Monaco.
Yes,
that was a classic.
That was a classic. 2012. Yeah, that was a tumultuous year for sure. 2013 was way more fun in the GP3 category. But yeah, it was. I've had a lot of wild times in my European racing career.
I was going to say that 2013 one. I think Dino got banned from the next race, didn't he, or excluded from the next race?
Very sure. Yeah, something like that, or just banned forever. I never saw him again, so I don't know.
But and as you mentioned, I mean, when people think back of how a career can like diverge a bit, I don't want to open up old wounds, but you mentioned Carlos Sainz there. I just looked, he finished 10th in the championship that year. He's a multiple Grand Prix winner racing for Ferrari now, and you finished 3rd. He finished 10th in that championship. Danny Kvyat went on to win that Monza race and win the title and have a spell with obviously Red Bull and Toro Rosso. It does show, doesn't it, that these moments, sometimes completely out of a driver's hands, can have a huge impact on where their career goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's and again, it's something that I look back on now almost like with pride a little bit because of how many great drivers were in that era, and Carlos being one of them, and to see him succeed like he did is awesome. But yeah, like that one race, like if you look at it, even it's crazy how drivers can go back, but you look at it like 100 feet by 100 feet. By the time I got to the second chicane in Monza, the right front tire had not exploded yet. We were leading the championship ahead of Danny Kvyat, all those guys, by like several points. And Monza was a great track for us no matter what, because we proved it the next day that in the race. We set fastest lap of the race. We had a great car with ART. And when that tire delaminated, my entire career delaminated for Europe, because like I had to win the championship that year. to continue getting support from Force India. Like I was a Force India development driver then. If I had won the championship, we were straight to GP2, F2 next year in their supported team, straight to doing FP1s, like in the F1 car, all that stuff. Everything was kind of going the right way, but I had to win the championship. So that was it. And it was, definitely a shame to look back on now, but you're right. I mean, you could go from one corner having your career go one direction to, the next one, it doesn't. But there are, I mean, you could name several drivers, I'm sure, who have been in similar situations. I'm not saying woe is me. I had a great experience over there, got to win races, fight against a lot of great drivers. But yeah, it is definitely wild to look back on.
Yeah, for regular listeners, that we obviously focus a fair bit with the F1 circus on Logan Sargent and how he's doing. But in a sense, it's because of that very reason. When he comes close to a decent result and then he makes a mistake, or it looks like it might be on the cards and doesn't come his way, then it pushes him that little bit closer to maybe not getting a contract extension. If he just has that one good race or two good races that gets him an extra year, and then something clicks and he has a big result somewhere else, like that momentum can so quickly change. And he's not done anything differently, or realistically, his talent hasn't changed, as you've shown.
Right.
Your talent can be worthy of going way further, but if circumstances hurt you, you're not going to get the chance.
Yeah, I remember I had a chat with Mario Dominguez in Mexico. We shared the commentary booth, and I was asking him, what's the scene like among young drivers here in Mexico? And he said, we've got great young drivers, but there's no support for them. We don't have a lot of great racetracks for them to show their skills on. They can't travel abroad because they don't have the finances. And so we don't get a chance to see some of them out there. And we did see some in the Formula 4 race in Mexico City. This kid, Christian Cantu, was just awesome. But I remember a million years ago, I think it was Fernando Alonso, won a championship, was doing his interviews about, how he didn't have much support coming up in Spain. He said, and I'll never forget, he said, I raced karts with a dozen guys who can do everything that I'm doing if they had the opportunity and the support and the right equipment and so on. So it's just an example of the randomness of motorsport. And maybe it's true of, sandlot baseball and, municipal courts, tennis and basketball and all that kind of stuff. There are great talents that we never hear about or learn about.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Let's look at any other professional sport, baseball, basketball, football, soccer. How many hundreds of players get to make it to the top level, right? How many hundreds of players, even if you get the chance to be on the bench of those teams, right? You're still getting paid as a professional athlete. Well, there's 20 F1 seats, you know what I mean? And there's back in the day, there was 30 GP3 seats, right? And there was 26 GP2 seats. That's a very, very small number. And if you have to be the one person from GP3 to make it to GP2, to make it to F1, like, that's a wild deal. So, I feel very lucky I got to make it to, I got to drive a Formula 1 car. I got to be a part of a Formula 1 team. I got to, race at the Indy 500, the Daytona 500. Like, I feel very lucky to have been part of that group. And, it's been it's still going, obviously, but it's been a fun life to have been a part of it. But it's a ruthless sport. Without a doubt, one of the most ruthless sports to be a part of, mentally, physically, everything.
Hey, Conor,
do you hear much from Vijay Mallya?
No, not anymore. But man, interacting with that guy was one of the most interesting interactions I've ever had in my life. That's for sure.
Bet. What a maverick.
Conor, I was going to ask you about the popularity of Formula 1 with Drive to Survive and IndyCar. I feel like there's it used to be you didn't even mention one sport or the other, one series or the other. But now it seems like there's a little more friendliness between the series.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think still Formula 1's coming for everyone's throats, but as they should, right? I mean, shoot, it's got a lot of power right now, but overall, I do like the integration a little bit. Like you've got James Hinchcliffe working for Formula 1, right? He's a full-on IndyCar guy. He's in the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame now, right? Like there's a lot of great integration. I mean, shoot, even me getting the chance to go to Las Vegas for Formula 1 to work with them. I mean, we have a lot of respect for Formula 1, and I think when you see guys like Fernando Alonso coming over to do the Indy 500, I think you see a lot of drivers that are certainly considering it. There are a lot more drivers in Formula One that I think talk about doing that stuff than is publicly known about. So there's a lot of respect both ways, and I think IndyCar grew a lot this year. I think we took a big step forward, in viewership and just in general. The competition is insane. I think if you're a general motorsport fan, you can't ignore the fact that you've got guys that have come from Formula One V8 supercars, the best of the best from around the world. Some really, really good guys that are racing there. So I as a racing fan, I turn on I have a weekend off this weekend. What have I watched? Well, I've watched every single F1 session. I've watched every single NASCAR race that's been on because I like motorsport. I like racing. So I don't get why there's not more of that. Everyone seems to be like one or the other. Well, guess what? I've had a fantastic time watching the Xfinity Championship finish up. I've had a fantastic time watching the sprint race yesterday. Thought it was a great race. And so, I consume everything. And I know that you can do that. So it's something that I enjoy being a motor racing fan because I've got to drive all three of the cars now too, like all the top three levels of cars. So, you can appreciate all of them. But I enjoy just taking it all in because I think right now in the world, motorsport is doing fantastic. And I love to see that because that is my job. That's how I put food on my table. And heck, I think that's positives all across the board for everyone.
Yeah, for that very same reason, I was watching the WEC 8 Hours of Bahrain that was finishing off the season
if you really want to get into it, go there too.
Yeah, there was so many cars in the hypercar class. It was awesome to watch. But
great races all across the board.
It was brilliant, and the two Ferraris were trying to take each other out. It was a good way of filling the time before the sprint. But then it meant as I was tweeting through the sprint, I kept putting the Bahrain GP because I'd just been watching Bahrain. So I had to have someone tell me that I got it wrong.
Well, that's a great definition of a true fan of motorsports. You'll watch any kind of motorsport because of what it is in its totality. It's not just colorful cars going round and round or turning left and right or going in a straight line at 330 miles an hour. That, it's people stories, it's athletes, good guys and bad guys and girls and on and on and on. And it's all there's so much going on. I don't know how many times I've tried to explain that to people. Well, Max Verstappen wins all the races. Yeah, but that's just the beginning of the story. Why is he winning all the races? Who is he racing against? What are they up against? It's all part of the fun.
Hey, Conor, we gotta take a break, but have you got 10 more minutes to stick with us through the top of the hour?
Sure, yeah. I'm just hanging.
Awesome.
Weekend
off.
Right. He's got a weekend.
Yeah.
All right. You're listening to Speed City F1. We'll be back after a quick break. All right, we're still live on YouTube, Facebook, and Andy P has a question, or actually just a comment for you, Conor. He says, "Thank you, Conor!" Exclamation. He says, "Love hearing and that how cool it is to be a general motorsport fan. One doesn't have to suffer for the other." And
Darn right.
Derek McCord says, hell of a full women's team won the last GTE race yesterday in WEC, and there's a lot more out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Iron Dames. Yeah. I saw that. I just had Catherine Legg on my podcast as well. She had talked about a lot of the women that are kicking some butts right now all across the world.
Hey, let's mention your podcast when we go back on Sirius too.
They have, it's not the same three women everywhere. They've had Catherine move in and Norwegian chick who drives. Anyway, they've had a roster of female drivers who've been in the program, and they do well.
We think of Christina Nielsen from Denmark.
That's who I'm thinking.
Yeah, she's good. Yeah.
Can we have you in the booth too? I'm getting old. I'm forgetting names. I need you, Chris.
What an awesome team name too, the Iron Dames. Like I would cheer for that team.
That's right.
Yeah.
Go get them, girls.
Yeah.
But even the what the F1 Academy stuff looked like in Austin was damn cool because you suddenly saw a group of actually like given track time, talented drivers that were suddenly being like, okay, we're not also going to say next you have to go and win F2. Like give them that little bit of time to build up that skill set. And they might end up in sports cars or whatever, but they're further up the ladder. They've got options, which is good because that's obviously what's been lacking, isn't it?
Well, that's what we all love about all-rounders, as they call them all the time in the press. Guys, Mario Andretti and Dan Gurney and AJ Boyd, and all those guys would drive different cars. Nowadays,
that's what
contracts
I do. Yeah.
won't let you do that. But it's great to see people, go from series to series, and it doesn't have to be Formula One. I mean, if you're like Conor and you'll drive anything and drive it well.
Yep.
Where's the seat? Where's the seat? Give me a seat and the steering wheel. I got my helmet. Let's go.
And speaking of all that, that's where Jonathan is. Jonathan's going to be with you guys in the booth, Connor. And Jonathan's out of COTA doing F3, F4, Trans Am, and SVRA.
I can say already, I'm not going to be able to get a word in.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
To the grid, F1 aficionados, fellow F1 fans, as we race through over 30 countries, from the historic tracks in Italy to the speedy straights of Japan, F1 is as global as it gets. Ever wish you could chat with locals during the Spanish Grand Prix or truly grasp the team radio in Italy's Monza? Dive into the vibrant multilingual world of Formula One with Rosetta Stone. You're a co-driver in language learning. With Rosetta Stone, you're not just on the track, you're in the race. No pit stops, no renewals. Move from rookie phrases to pole position conversations, immersing deeper in every race. Rosetta Stone offers a pit lane of 25 languages, guiding you at your pace. And once you're on the grid, it's a lifetime ticket, no flags attached. Gear up for the next Grand Prix circuit. For a limited lap, get a 50% off Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership. Full throttle your language journey at rosettastone.com/SXM. That's rosettastone.com/SXM. All right, we're about an hour and a few minutes away from the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, and our guest, Conor Daly, is with us. And
hey, John?
Yes?
Does Rosetta Stone offer racing language? I wasn't aware of that. I mean, do they have push and loose and undercut and overcut and degradation?
Bob, are you volunteering to teach that course for Rosetta Stone?
I have enough trouble.
Netflix is offering it.
Yeah.
On the next season.
Well, Connor, we're really excited to have you. And what do you think of when you think of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix?
Well, honestly, I find it to be one of the most entertaining tracks, I think. I mean, yesterday's sprint race. Now, look, I think there's been a lot of not great racing in Formula One this year, but I thought yesterday was great. I thought there was a lot of great racing, a lot of great respect as well for each driver. So I think that bodes well for today for the main race. But it's one track that for sure I wish I could have driven on. I've got to drive on a ton of racetracks. I feel very lucky to have driven all across the world. But yeah, that's a track that for sure, the fans love being there. You know, the passion for motorsport in Brazil. And I think yesterday's sprint race was great. I mean, maybe not for the win, but for everything else was great.
Well, that's the main point, isn't it? When people focus on these, they go, "Oh, well, Max won again." It's like, yeah, but there was 19 other drivers
Max
further
once,
back.
Yeah.
And Lando kept them honest for a spell enough that you were like, "Oh, maybe," but yeah, everything behind was really good. And as you say, what amazed me, especially seeing as they couldn't keep it clean in the sprint shootout, was that in the race, the amount of time you saw drivers high speed through turn 3, inches apart. In a race where they weren't actually always fighting for points either. And we didn't have a single yellow flag incident in that whole race. No contact, no damage. Yeah, remarkable.
And here's another point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I said at the beginning of the show that I was going to complain about the drivers' complaints about the tires. And we heard Max Verstappen afterwards say there wasn't one single lap where I was pushing flat out. And like most friends, I was like, what? You weren't pushing. Well, this is a complete farce. This is a disaster. But now that I think about it, everybody had the same issues. And what we got, as we've been talking about, was a great race. So does it really matter if Max Verstappen was going flat out or not? I mean, what's the difference between 140 miles an hour and 150 miles an hour? I don't know. But if it takes the kind of conditions we had yesterday to produce a great race, rough racetrack, questionable tire strategies, on and on and on, maybe that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think what we saw with Daniel Ricciardo, just battling, couldn't get it done. Then he gets passed by Piastri, right? But his tires weren't done after that, so he kept going. Like there was still a race to be had there. Sometimes you see a bit of a battle, and then after 2 or 3 laps pushing hard, well, the tires have gone off now. You're in the dirty air of the car in front of you. You can't really use them anymore. But that didn't really seem to be the case. You could still push, which for us, I mean, me personally as a driver, if you're absolutely putting your life on the line trying to get some guy in front of you, and you're hating the fact that you can't quite get it done. Like, the DRS is, it's awesome, and it's a curse as well, because Daniel makes this move and then he just gets absolutely driven by down the next straight, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's worked his butt off to try to get in front of him. But the tire did seem to hold up, which is great. Like, if you can just keep charging and keep going after the person in front of you, and you got a little bit more pace than them, that's good. So I hope we see more of that. I would love to see, Yuki Tsunoda throwing it at Lewis Hamilton again. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see that. Like feed that to me, because I'm ready for it on a Sunday.
That's one of the areas that I think F1 has actually really improved in recent years with these cars as well, which they did so much work on. But since last year, it's the tires probably aren't amazing or even close to, but they've made slight improvements with the tires and big improvements with how much you're affected being behind another car with the ground effect that we now have. And it just means that those tires can hold on. And as you say, you can have a go. You might have to back off for a lap or two, but your race isn't done. And it was in the previous era, particularly, everything had to be done immediately, or you would just never. I keep coming back to the clash between Verstappen and Hamilton at Silverstone when Verstappen had a huge shunt, and it's because Hamilton knew if he didn't get past at that corner on the first lap, he probably wasn't getting past him at any point, even if he was a bit quicker. Right. Whereas today, that doesn't happen. They will keep going at it for the whole race. So I think that has been a step forward. It's not perfect, but it's been an improvement.
I also like where the DRS zone is tuned, right? Like, you get to turn 1 and you still got drivers throwing it down the outside. Daniel Ricciardo kind of holding the outside. And if you can, and the respect actually of going too wide there, you get the inside for the next part of that first chicane, but then also you want the DRS down that next straight. And also people are struggling, as you mentioned, through turn 3. I mean, people fighting the car, medium that I would consider a medium speed corner for a Formula One car. Yeah, in qualifying it's flat, right? But like in the race, different situations, trying to fight from my personal experience, sometimes in IndyCar as well. When you're trying to fight the car through that medium speed corner, when you're slightly offline, that is a battle. But if you happen to get on the throttle earlier than the guy that you're fighting, and you carry that speed through that corner, and you happen to get it flat, I mean, that's the whole joy of racing. Who is able to get flat first, and who is able to carry the speed. And if you happen to get that moment and you have to lift, well, guess what? Now you're a victim of whoever's behind you chasing you. So the track creates a great just environment for racing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Hey, Conor, there's a question for you coming in off YouTube. It says, TW says, what track does Conor have the worst luck or dislike the most?
I mean, are we talking in America or Europe? Because I can go with all kinds. I think Monza is my worst luck track in the entire world when it comes to world motorsport. But it's also been my most fun track to race at. And then I would say in America, oh man, Long Beach, I started out winning in 2011. I won the Indy Lights race there, but then every race there, for some reason, there's always been an issue for me in my life. But yeah, I've had a lot of great times. I like to focus on the great things.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Conor, we are out of time for this segment, and we cannot thank you enough. I can't wait to see you in Vegas. I know you're going to have fun with the boys on the PA out there, but thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, it's going to be great to work with Bob. After my dad worked with him for many years, it's kind of wild to see that now I get to. So I feel very lucky.
Looking forward to it, buddy.
All right. Well, thanks, Conor. Thanks, everybody. We are going to be back after this break for a second hour of our pre-race show to get you ready for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix right after this.